Hello, I'm Joel Blackford with Beth Hesed Sabbath Fellowship. We are virtual. Sorry about that, but you can call the number listed if you'd like to. We try to do the philosophy of eschatology each week, what you need to know, your reality, our existence. We try to test out the scriptures in light of what you're seeing in the world. We try not to be disparate. We're Beth Hesed Sabbath Fellowship. Thank you for joining us. Zechariah 14, especially Zechariah 14:12. It's talking about war, but is it going to be a nuclear war? Will it be a solar war? Does God need nuclear weapons? All sorts of things. And if it is solar, you should start to see signs of it. Like I'm in Minnesota right now, and it's January 15th, and it is 35 degrees during what should be the coldest week of the year. Interesting, isn't it? So we'll test these things out, test some theories out. Does God that created the heavens and the earth, really need nukes? And will he use nukes? So when we have this plague, when he smites the people that have come up to fight against Jerusalem, and they will stand on their feet, and their eyes shall consume away in their hole, into their sockets, and the tongue shall consume away in the mouth. I think that's going to be solar. Now, there will be nukes from mankind to mankind. But when God goes up to fight, he doesn't use nuclear weapons. There will still be nuclear contamination, and I'll give you some prophecies that'll match up with that. Now, these are three men that I don't consider to be prophets. You might like them. You can listen to them all day long. They're good people. It's just that I don't consider them to be prophets. First is John Hagee. He says it's going to be a nuclear weapon. That's way over on the left-hand side there, Zechariah 14:12. He quotes it. And then it's the nuclear door that's opened the gates of death and Hades. Interesting, That's found in Revelation 6:8 with death and Hades, but also found in, I want to say that it's probably Isaiah 28:15. So he is correct. Death and Hades will be playing a part in this. Will it be nukes? We'll see. In part, it'll be nukes. The next person is from Calvary Chapel, Jonesboro. Calvary tends to parrot. Everybody agrees with everybody on this. Pre-trib rapture, definitely. And so they're claiming it's going to be a neutron bomb, that we should expect neutron bombs. Okay, fine. Then the last one on the right-hand side is Chuck Missler. Most people follow Chuck. He is prophetic, but he's not a prophet. He never claimed to be one. And so he's saying potential nuclear cloud hangs over every geopolitical decision. Nuclear weapons appear to be specified in Ezekiel 38:39 and Zechariah 14:12. Okay, so that's Missler. Let's test out their words, and let's test out the news, and let's test out what you see in the world and solar activity in the verses stated. Let's see if I can prove my point that it's a combination of nukes from mankind and solar from God. So let's see if that works out. We do the philosophy of the end of days. We try not to twist the Bible. We try so hard, and real prophecy and real news. So first of all, we are stoking the nuclear fires. Duck and cover from the 50s could be happening again here. We're pushing Putin's buttons. And we've proved in a video a week or so ago that the war started in 2014. The United States and Britain and France and Germany all lied to Putin, and all they wanted to do was start a war, and they really wanted Zelensky to be able to build up his war machine and then go fight Putin. And so, yeah, this is World War III right now. It's just that you don't realize that it's been going since 2014. And if let's pretend that Putin had set up Castro in Cuba to have nukes and to constantly rattle our cage every day of the week, we would have had a World War III with Cuba sooner. But the Ukraine is the same thing as Cuba, or Canada for that matter too. So who has the most nukes? Russia. Who has the next most? The United States. Russia has faster nukes. They can get there much quicker. China has nothing, hardly. France has nothing. The United Kingdom. So really, this is it. Israel is listed with 90. They'll never admit that they have any, but they do. So we are encouraging war right now. There is no way to duck and cover from what's coming when it does happen. It will nuke the earth. I'll give you a prophecy at the end from a Norwegian lady from 1968, and you can test my words on that. So Wilkerson is the first guy that I cite that's very prophetic, and you can say that you don't trust Wilkerson because he prophesied accurate statements, but then people pushed him hard, and he said, I think it's soon, and then they started giving dates. And that's when we always screw up. People push us for when. Well, you know what? When God does it, and that could be soon in God's world, but that's not soon for us. So 1973, he talks about the vision and the recession caused by economic confusion, labor pains, flood of filth, baptism of dirt. You'll see that in another prophecy coming up in a minute here. Rebellion in the home, persecution madness. 2009, thousand fires coming to New York City. Major cities across America will experience riots and blazing fires. We're on the edge of that, people. We're on the edge of that. And by the way, I'll go back to this page. There's Henry Gruver then and Dimitri Duduman with Michael Boldea. Michael's a very close friend, a very wonderful man. He's not a close friend. I want him to be a close friend. I think he's just a wonderful guy. And he's still, of the three men, he's the only one alive because Duduman died, I want to say it was 1997. So it's interesting to have that connection still. So once again, Wilkerson, 1973, you can see the things, economic recession, which is basically the third seal, nature having labor pains, kind of the fourth seal, flood of pornographic filth, it's all sorts of birth pangs. Rebellion in the homes could be the fifth seal. Persecution madness is definitely the fifth seal. So that's Wilkerson. Back in 1973, great man, founded Teen Challenge, did some wonderful things. Yes, he was pushed by followers to give dates, and he was wrong with that. And he died sooner as a result. So Henry Gruver prophesies Russia attacks America. Yeah, I met Henry back in 2016 in Iowa. That was really wonderful. Glad that I met the man. Got to interview him. And then once again, I do talk to Michael Boldea when it's convenient. I wish I could claim him to be a close friend, but he is a friend. And so Dimitri was despaired because he realized that he had to come to America and tell them that California would burn. It's Sodom and Gomorrah. Las Vegas will burn. It's Sodom and Gomorrah. New York is Sodom and Gomorrah. It will burn. All of these places will burn. So we have another description of that, the attack of Russia against America at some point in time because they're provoked. Then we move ahead now into Zechariah. And so we've covered the three prophetic guys. Now let's look at the prophetic verses and see if it matches. One, always go into this thinking, would God need to use nukes? If God could create the heaven and the earth, which he did, does he really need nukes? Or will he use something else? So, Zechariah 14, 1 through 3, look, the day is coming for Adonai when you plunder Jerusalem, and will be divided right there within you, for I will gather all the nations. We would say 70 in Judaism, against Jerusalem for war. The city will be taken, the houses will be rifled, the women will be raped, half the city will go into exile, but the rest of the people will not be cut off from the city. Then Adonai will go out and fight. I'm not saying that's nukes, guys. I'm going to say solar. Does God need nukes? Okay. And against those nations, fighting is on the day of battle. Moving forward, Zechariah 14, 4 through 5, on that day, by Yom Hahu, his feet will stand on the Mount of Olives. This is a good time, which lies to the east of Jerusalem, and on the Mount of Olives he will split it in half from east to west and make a huge valley. Half of the mountain will move towards the north and half towards the south. You will flee to the valley of the mountains. For in the valley, in the mountains, you will reach Atzel. You will flee, just as you fled before the earthquake. This is a solar clue, because earthquakes are tied to solar activity. So just be aware of that. Earthquakes, solar activity. In the days of Uzziah, king of Judah, when Adonai my God will come to you with all the holy ones. That sounds like Revelation 19:2. Okay, then moving forward into verses 6 through 9, on that day, Bayom Hahu again. Huge statement. Whenever you see Bayom Hahu, think of the end of days. There will be neither bright light nor thick darkness. That's another solar clue. And one day, known to Adonai, God, will be neither day nor night. Okay, well, that sounds like a solar clue also. Although by evening there will be light on that day. By Yom Hahu, fresh water will flow from Jerusalem, half to the eastern sea and half to the western sea, both summer and winter. Then Adonai will be king over the whole world. And this is verse 9. We sing it all the time. It's just wonderful. He will be king over the whole world. On that day, Adonai will be the only one, and his name will be the only name. U'ekad Shemo. That's it at the end of it. So now, verses 10 through 11. All the land will be made like the Arava from Geva to Ramon in the Negev, down where it's dusty and dry and desert-like. Jerusalem will be raised up and inhabited. Not if God nuked it. No, you can't live in a nuked place. So there will be nukes across the world, just not Jerusalem. Where she is, even from Benjamin's gate to the place where the earlier gate stood, and on to the corner gate, and from the Tower of Hananel to the king's. I'm saying it's the wine presses. If he's got wine presses and he's making wine, there's no toxic nuclear nearby. People will live there, the curse will be broken, and Jerusalem will live in safety amongst the nuclear fallout. No. Jerusalem will live in safety without nuclear fallout. There won't be there in that location. Okay, so now we move up to the big verse, which is 12. And you've already kind of read it in part, and anyway. So, and this shall be the plague, and I'm switching to JPS now. The other versions were should have been, oh goodness, I'm blanking on it. This should be the Complete Jewish Bible. This is JPS. I really wanted to show you that instead. And there shall be the plague wherewith the Lord will smite all the peoples that have warred against Jerusalem. Their flesh shall consume away. That's your third solar clue, okay? Because when you read it, I'll give you the exact word in the Hebrew in just a moment here. But when you see it, the consuming away is a lighter way of rotting away. You can see it on the right-hand side. Rot away is a little bit different than consuming away, okay? Third solar clue. While they stand upon their feet, and their eyes shall consume away again. Fourth solar clue. In their sockets, and their tongue shall consume. Fifth solar clue. In their mouth. And I'll be able to show you this, the tongue, lashon in Hebrew, is going to be glassa in the Greek, and I'll show you that in a little bit here when we get to the Greek section. The main thing is I'm arguing that this seems to be solar clues, that's how you know you're getting close to the end of the day, so to speak, by Yom HaHu. Okay, so I'm arguing micronova, and so is Ben Davidson in many, many ways. And he runs Suspicious Observers, a YouTube site. Wonderful guy. I'm not a believer, doesn't matter. He's arguing it's a solar micronova that seems to agree with what you're seeing in the Bible. So I want to say makak on the lower right-hand side is verb to decay. Doesn't mean a nuclear blast. It means decaying, rotting, festering, figurative, pine away, molder away. Think of molder away. I like that one the best. And that sounds more like what you would experience from a solar micronova, which is a burp from the sun. And we just had a few lately here. We had some M class just today, I think it was, and some X class last week. So once again, I'm recording on January 15th. So, sixth solar clue. This is from Revelation chapter 19, which, so when you think about end times verses, go to Ezekiel 38, 39, that all match together. Then Zechariah 14, which we just read, and we're taking a break from right now. Then move forward to Revelation 19. All three of these are read during the week of Sukkot. Okay, well, I mean, Jews don't read Revelation 19, but guys like me do, because it's the same verses, so we're going to be reading the Greek, so it's going to be left to right, verses 17, starting it out. And I saw one angel standing in the sun, and he cried out in a loud voice, saying, oh, by the way, did I say in the sun? Yes, he's in the sun. That's a clue to the sun. That's your sixth clue right there. Okay, saying in a loud voice, saying to all the birds flying in mid-heaven, come, gather yourselves to the supper great of God, so that you may eat the flesh of kings, and the flesh of commanders, and the flesh of mighty men, and the flesh of horses. So keep in mind, birds eating people and critters. That's what you should notice when we get to other sections of the Bible. But this is Revelation 19. I'm saying that is your sixth solar clue, because he's standing in the sun. And so we'll show you more verses that match up with that too. So now we are in Ezekiel 39, and we're comparing the birds eating the critters and the kings. So as for you, human, Adonai Elohim says that you are to speak to all the kinds of birds and to every wild animal as follows. Assemble yourselves. Come, gather yourselves from all around for the sacrifice I am preparing for you, a great sacrifice in the mountains of Israel, where you can eat the flesh and eat flesh and drink blood. You will eat the flesh of heroes and drink the blood of earth's princes, rams, lambs, goats, and bulls, fatted in Bashan, all of them. You will eat fat till you are gorged, and drink blood till you are drunk, at the sacrifice I have prepared for you. At my table you will be satiated with horses, horsemen, heroes, and every kind of warrior, says Adonai Elohim. Once again, that's Ezekiel 39:17 through 20. So birds don't really like to eat nuked bodies. Here's my articles, Chernobyl has become a refuge for wildlife 33 years after the nuclear accident. Didn't happen right away. So when Chernobyl blew up or melted, it is the melted word, okay, in April 26th of 1986, the birds left, the other animals left, but the birds are coming back, certain types of birds. So those birds, with the proper antioxidant levels, they have DNA damage, but really related to their ability to handle radiation, they can handle higher radiation level. They had more oxidants and so antioxidants, so that helped them to keep a better body condition. So basically, the better the antioxidants, the better the birds can handle contamination. And so these birds are probably coming in after the solar wave. That's what I'm arguing. Not as much of the nuke wave. Okay, so yeah, two articles here that really say some birds thrive in Chernobyl's radioactive glow, but this is years afterwards. This is 2014, 2019. So it took a few years for that to occur. So just keep in mind. But yeah, the birds will come and eat after radiation. I wanted to show you some verses with this melting away type word too. And the birds will eat, but this is the melted away. So this is Leviticus 26:19. Of their enemies they shall be melted away. Interesting time frame. And so it's an account of sins and things like that, and then they're melted away. And that's the Greek word 5080. Takes sonatai. Okay, fine. I'm sorry. It's based on the root of take. And so also those nations he will not rest. So this is Deuteronomy 28. Oh, by the way, Leviticus 26 is a Deuteronomic cycle, which is the 26th chapter. It goes through waves and waves of what will happen to you if you sin all the time. Same thing with Deuteronomy 28. You sin, he brings waves against you. So once again, your melting soul because of the waves of judgments that come against you. It's very gradual. Then we move on to Zechariah 14:12, which you've seen before. Melt away in the Greek only happens twice there, but the word takak is there 3 times in the Hebrew. And then finally, I wanted to show you this. This is why I went Greek rather than Hebrew. 2 Peter 3:12, expecting and hastening the arrival of the day of God, which is that is Bayom Hahu, by which the heavens being set on fire shall be loosed, and the elements being destroyed by fire shall melt away. That doesn't sound like a nuke. It sounds more like solar melting, okay? Melting more of a gradual pace. So now let's look at your 6th or 7th clue right now. The 4th one poured out his bowl on the sun. Okay, so this is the angel pouring his bowl out on the sun. And that's a clue, of course, and it was permitted to burn people with fire. People were burned by the intense heat, yet they cursed the name of God, who had the authority over these plagues, instead of turning from their sins to give him glory. The 5th one poured out his bowl on the throne of the beast. That's right now it's Berlin. That's where the throne, literally, of the beast is in Pergamos Museum. And his kingdom grew dark. That's a solar sign right there, too. People gnawed at their tongues. That's that glossa word. We're going to show you that in the Greek in just a second here, which is you should link that tongues to tongues in terms of Zechariah 14:12 to Revelation 16:8. People gnawed their tongues from the pain. And once again, I say that's the 7th solar clue. Yet they cursed the God of heaven because of their pains and sores and did not turn from their sinful deeds. Interesting. So that's Revelation 16. That's during the bowls. That's late in the process. So keep that in mind. The solar flares are going to get larger and larger and larger over time. So I wanted to show you glossa in the Greek. And so this is Zechariah 14:12, and their tongue will melt away in their mouth, glossa. And then on the other hand here, Revelation 16:11, and their tongues. So, and they gnawed their tongues because of the misery. So it's very similar. That you should notice that it's probably solar-based people. Okay. So I'm arguing that the time of Gog and Magog is during the 2nd Exodus, and the time of the bowls is during the 2nd Exodus. And it will be all the nations of the world getting more and more angry, so to speak, with God and Israel and then coming against him. And yeah, Russia's a part of it, but they're not the key part. I think the Gog-Magog area, or Gog comes from Magog, which should be in Tubal and Gomer and Meshech and Togarmah, are up in Turkey. That's Asia Minor. That is the Caliphate up until 1917, and the Caliphate is kind of forming again, people. So now we're moving back to Zechariah 14, so you can see how it ends up. When that day comes, there will be among them a great panic set by Adonai, so that everyone lays his hand on his neighbor, who in turn attacks him. Judah will fight against Jerusalem, and the wealth of the nations will be assembled, gold, silver, and clothing, in great abundance. A plague like this plague will also affect the horses, mules, and camels, donkeys, and all the other animals in those camps. That could be potentially the nuclear fallout, but it should pass. Finally, everyone remaining from all the nations that come to attack Jerusalem will go up every year to worship the king Adonai Tezvaot, and keep the festival of Sukkot. If any of the families of the earth do not go up to Jerusalem to worship the king Adonai Tezvaot, no rain will fall on them. If the family of Egypt doesn't go up, if they refuse to come, there will be no annual overflow from the Nile. Moreover, there will be a plague with which Adonai will strike the nations that don't go up to keep the festival of Sukkot. This will be Egypt's punishment and the punishment of all the nations that don't go up to keep the festival of Sukkot. That's ending up. We're not going to finish the last verses of Zechariah because it's basically millennial type verses. But that's Zechariah 14, 16 through 19. I'm saying God doesn't need nukes to get this all done. The striking with the curses, things like that, could be solar, could be the fact that he can blow the winds around, and that would allow the nuclear fallout to hit certain areas and not others. So once again, I'm contrasting that God didn't use a nuke with Moses, and that when we're talking about the fourth bowl of the sun, that doesn't seem to be a nuke, people. That seems to be more the sun scorching people with fire and the fierce heat and things like that. So I'm arguing that God uses natural means. He doesn't use nukes. There will be nukes, but he uses natural means. Okay, so now this is Ben Davidson again, and I just love him. He's not a believer, of course, but he is citing what seems to be a sequential movement through the bowls, from the fourth bowl, kind of into the fifth bowl, into Revelation 19:17, into Zechariah 14:6. So changes on planets, stars, and sun. We're noticing that right now. That's a galactic sheet coming through. And so you'll notice one planet, then the next planet changing in their atmosphere, so to speak, okay? And that's been occurring since 1859. There should be a solar kill shot at some point in time in the 2020s or 2030s. Weather animals in the solar red and black. That's that changeover of the fifth bowl. And you're also seeing that a little bit in Zechariah, where he says it's not really this kind of a day or that kind of a day. It's no light, no dark, whatever else. That's that micronova type event, and the going to red to black, which is really not light or dark. It's rather black. And then the micronova, which should be probably Revelation 19:17. Then the shell impact, arc to star charge. This happens within hours. Then the whole planet electrical insult within minutes. That's Zechariah 14:6. Then the earth turns over. There are impactors. There will be cold after that. Everything begins immediately, and it lasts for days and weeks. And then we start to clean up. And that's really the end of Ezekiel 39. On that day, there will be neither bright light nor thick darkness, and one day known to Adonai will be neither day nor night. Do you see the comparison between what Ben's saying and what God is saying? It works. Okay, now we're going to go into a prophecy that kind of sounds like what I'm talking about. She's talking about nukes, but there are other things going on. So this is from a 90-year-old Norwegian woman from 1968. She's gone now. Eminos is the evangelist that got this information. He threw it aside thinking this is too ridiculous. And that's the other thing about prophecies. When you look at them, at first you just laugh at them. But then over time you say, oh boy, this sounds logical based on what things are happening now. Like when I read Wilkerson saying, Germany's going to fall first, I started laughing because Germany can't fall. Well, nowadays Germany can fall. Okay, I saw the time just before the coming of Jesus, and this is prior to 1968. She saw Norway, she saw Europe, she saw the world basically. There's a time before Jesus comes, before the Third World War breaks out, and there will be a détente that goes on from basically 1945 to where we are right now. We have not had a world war since the Second World War, but we're getting closer to it. You'll have long peace, and there was a Cold War going on when she was talking about that. The Third World War will begin in a way no one would have anticipated from an unexpected place. I truly believe in that. Christians will not be open to penetrating preaching. Absolutely not right now. They are so into prosperity, and it's really success, prosperity, cash, increase, all of this. They're not interested in sin, that's for sure. Okay. Now, not the people listening to me right now. You guys are fine. But a lot of the people out there don't understand sin anymore. I grew up in that kind of evangelical preaching, so I understand it. Okay. People will live together like married without being married. You'll have TV filled with violence and sex and porn and other things like that, and people won't care. So she's right. And she saw this in 1968 or earlier. In 1968, there was no such thing as immigration. They will also come to Scandinavia and Norway. Yes, it's happened. And there will be so many of them that they will begin to dislike them and become hard with them. And so then at some point in time, I will not see it, but you will. Then suddenly Jesus will come and the Third World War breaks out at that moment. That's Gog Magog. Okay, it will be a short war. It will be, yes. And she saw it in the vision. All that I have seen of war before is only child's play compared to this one, but it will be ended with nuclear atomic bomb. The air will be so polluted that one cannot draw one's breath. It will cover several continents, the wealthy places, the wealthy nations, not Israel, but it will cover the wealthy continents. That's just how it's going to work out, people. Water will be ruined. We can no longer till the soil. The result will be only a remnant will remain. Remember how God said, I won't send rains to you if you don't come up for Sukkot? The water will be ruined and the rains will change. And so the wealthy countries will flee to the poor countries and they won't be well received. So the one who has his sin forgiven and has Jesus as Savior and Lord is safe. Okay, so that's our 90-year-old lady from Norway. Very accurate. Okay, keep in mind, so with fallout and things like that, God doesn't need nukes, okay? God has the ability to control heavens and the earth. He doesn't really need a nuke. Nukes will occur from men and cause long-term contamination. God has the sun and micronova. God could assemble the birds immediately after the micronova, so the birds would be protected in caves, say, and then, or in regions where the micronova wouldn't hit, then he would assemble them after that. God isn't going to nuke Israel. Okay, mankind might try to do that, but God isn't going to nuke Israel. God seems to use natural means to judge our sins. He always has. You know, sending down asteroids, so to speak, on Sodom and Gomorrah, sending down all sorts of things on Pharaoh in Egypt during the 10 plagues, and then finally, you know, killing the firstborn. It was more natural. Okay, and Gog Magog occurs last. So and the other thing is, based on the messengers that I've talked about, I don't think he's sending any more of these wonderful qualified messengers anymore. I think he's sending the clowns now. Okay, so expect to see more clowns, false prophets. Matthew 24, Jesus talks about it constantly in Matthew 24. Where are we in the time frame? We're in the birth pangs. We're not in tribulation. We're not in great tribulation. There will be nukes. Gog from Magog will be burned out by the sun. I argue that based on the verses that I showed you. And so now, what are you trying to do? You're trying to stay clean. That means repentance. That means that you think about the festivals and Sabbath and what garments will you wear. It's a wedding, people, coming up. And so be ready for that and keep yourself clean. That's repentance and that's faith. Good night. God bless. Bye.